Madam Toastmaster, Toastmasters and guest. My name is Theresa Haynes, and this is my first speech, my icebreaker speech. 2 years ago, I wandered into a public speaking workshop at a writers' conference. It was the end of the day, and I was a little tired, so I thought, I'll just sit in the back and relax and settle in for a minute. But I was actually really surprised when the instructor started out by saying something unusual. He said, if there's anyone who is experiencing an overwhelming sense of anxiety and dread surrounding public speaking, it might actually be because of a bad experience they've had. And he challenged the group to consider whether or not they had had a bad experience that needed healing. I thought about it. Ooh, and immediately I was taken back to a very specific moment. It was June 18th, 2016 in Los Angeles. I'd been asked to speak for 3 or 4 minutes at my daughter's high school graduation. It was a very special ceremony for our homeschooling community, and I was looking forward to publicly telling my daughter how proud I was of her. So I wrote the speech very carefully. I practiced. I put my heart into preparation. But on the night of the graduation, standing in front of the stage, I froze. I looked out at the audience and I just simply stood there like a deer in headlights until my sweet husband took the microphone from my hand and spontaneously said something that everybody loved. I was humiliated. And I was disappointed, but mostly I was just really sad because I had missed a special opportunity. But that sense of failure stayed with me. And I began to develop a deep anxiety around any kind of public speaking. Now, I had always felt uncomfortable with public speaking, but after this experience, I began to dread any opportunity that involved standing on a stage, holding a microphone, or even speaking up on a Zoom call. Then, a couple weeks after this writers' conference, I actually talked to my daughter, Micah, and I told her I had attended a public speaking workshop. And because she teaches public speaking, she was really interested. And she asked me what was covered in the workshop. And so I told her, and she listened, and she said, "Mom, did you have a bad experience with public speaking?" And I hesitated. I was a little embarrassed, but I said, "Yeah, actually, your graduation." And I told her the story that I'd been playing in my head over and over again. And she got this confused look on her face. And she said, "That's not what I remember. Mom, I remember you saying that homeschooling me was the greatest privilege of your life." And of course, at that moment, I started crying because Micah was right. I had said that, and I had completely forgotten it. I remember in my disappointment over my failure, I'd almost forgotten the success. I had forgotten that there had been 2 high school graduation ceremonies, and Micah was actually remembering the first one. That ceremony happened a week prior to the event that I had been remembering over and over again. At that first event, I stood on a stage next to Micah. I took the microphone. I told everyone how grateful I was for our shared homeschooling experience. So that was the beginning of the healing. And since then, I've been trying to say yes to public speaking opportunities. For instance, I said yes to reading scripture at church and then introducing a keynote speaker and making announcements. So last spring, I even did a 5-minute writer's coach speech. I know that I have a long way to go in overcoming my anxieties, but I am ready to learn and grow. So, since this is my first Toastmasters speech, I thought it would be appropriate for me to tell you a little bit more about myself. First of all, I am not a night owl. My husband's a night owl. I definitely am more of a morning person. That being said, I am a mom, as I mentioned earlier. My kids are both in their 20s. My daughter lives in Denver. My son lives in Oregon, where he attends George Fox University. My husband and I live in Snohomish, and we have a cat named Pippin and a flock of chickens. I'm also a writer, as I mentioned. Before my kids were born, I worked as a newspaper reporter And then after they were born, I blogged quite a bit. I blogged about parenting, homeschooling, living in California, leaving California, and moving to Sweden. And once we were in Sweden, I was able to complete my master's degree in the religious roots of Europe and publish my thesis in an academic journal. Right now, I am currently writing a historical novel. It's based on the true story of Thomas Abel, who was a 16th century priest who challenged King Henry VIII and ended up in the Tower of London. So I'm in the editorial stages of that. I've lived all over. I was born in Michigan, and then we moved to Oklahoma, and then Florida, and then Alabama, and then Wisconsin, and West Virginia, and then California, and now I live in Washington. My husband and I moved to California when we were in our early 20s, and we raised our kids there. So I spent most of my adult life in the Los Angeles area. But we were able to move to Sweden and live there for a couple years and then move to Washington. In fact, we've been in Washington exactly 5 years as of yesterday. My husband, Kip, also recently got his pilot's license. So we've been exploring Washington by flying around and seeing it from the air, which has been a lot of fun. So that's a little bit about me. I understand the importance of change and choosing the trajectory of my story or flipping the script. And so I just want to thank you in advance for all of your help and encouragement as I'm on this journey. Thank you.